So I want to read for you a story here. It's an account from a real person and real experiences. And some of you may be familiar with her story. Her name is Corrie, and she was alive a long time ago, and she lived in Holland, and she's the lady standing on the left there. And her family hid Jews. She wasn't Jewish herself, but she hid Jews in their house, and eventually they were captured. And most of her family that was captured died in concentration camps. And this story comes from after she survived that. She says this: "It was in a church in Munich that I saw him, a balding, heavy-set man in a gray overcoat, a brown felt hat clutched between his hands. People were filling out of the basement room where I had just spoken. It was 1947, and I had come from Holland to defeated Germany with the message that God forgives. And that's when I saw him, working his way forward against the crowd. One moment I saw the overcoat and the brown hat, and the next a blue uniform and a visor cap with its skull and crossbones, the SS uniform. It came back with a rush. The huge room with its harsh overhead lights, the pathetic pile of dresses and shoes in the center of the floor, the shame of walking naked, completely naked, past this man. I could see my sister's frail form ahead of me, ribs sharp beneath the parchment skin. Betsy, how thin you were." Betsy and I had been arrested for concealing Jews in our home during the Nazi occupation of Holland. This man had been a guard at Ravensbrück concentration camp, where we were sent. "You mentioned Ravensbrück in your talk," he was saying. "I was a guard there." He didn't remember me. I had to do it. I knew that the message that God forgives has a prior condition that we forgive those who have injured us. But since that time, he went on, I have become a Christian. I know that God has forgiven me for the incredibly cruel things I did there. But I would like to hear it from your lips as well, Fräulein. His hand came out. "Will you forgive me?" And I stood there, I whose sins had every day to be forgiven, and I could not. Betsy had died in that place. Could he ease her slow, terrible death simply for the asking? It could not have been many seconds that he stood there, hands held out. But to me it seemed hours, as I wrestled with the most difficult thing I had ever had to do. For I had to do it. I knew that the message that God forgives has a prior condition, that we forgive those who have injured us. If you do not forgive men their trespasses, Jesus says, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses. And still I stood there with coldness clutching my heart. But forgiveness is not an emotion. I knew that too. Forgiveness is an act of the will, and the will can function regardless of the temperature of the heart. "Jesus, help me," I prayed silently. "I can lift my hand. I can do that much. You supply the feeling." And so woodenly, mechanically, I thrust my hand into the one stretched out to me, and as I did, an incredible thing took place. The current started in my shoulder and raced down my arm and sprang into our joined hands. "I forgive you, brother," I cried, with all my heart. For a long moment, we grasped each other's hands, the former guard and the former prisoner. I had never known God's love so intensely as I did then. Being centered on Christ empowers you to move forward towards radical forgiveness.